Blender on Linux. Is it capable of doing video editing? Now, I've done video editing with Blender in the past, but of course I was using Windows. But now I'm on a Linux machine here, and specifically I'm using MX Linux, which you can find online. It's one of the popular OSs right now. It runs on Debian, and of course you can get Blender through their package manager. So you can just go to their package manager, type in your password, and go get it. It's in here somewhere. You just have to search. Or you can just launch your terminal, and through your terminal you can install it that way. All you got to do is sudo apt install blender. Ask for your password, and it's locked because I have this package thing open. Okay, but there it is right there as well. So you can click it and then go install. Well, it has a reinstall button for me right now because I've already installed it. But okay, so if I close that, let me just close Blender for a second, and now we try to install it. It's not locked anymore, and it says Blender is already installed. But if you don't have it, you'll install it, and this will stay up to date as the most stable one that your Linux distro provides. So Blender has updated a little bit since then, but this is still the one they recommend. It's the one that comes with their packages, and it will auto update when it needs to. So that just makes it awesome for maintaining. So let's go ahead and cover up our Moscow Goriak, I think that's what that is, with Blender. So launching Blender here, and let's just go ahead and go up to File at the top left, and then click New, and we're going to click Video Editing. And this brings us to a special video editing setup for Blender. You'll see video editing and rendering up here. Now, for example though, if you're just in the general one, you can still go to video editing from this plus way up here, and just go to it from here. And then you're in the general view with the video editing tab added. So however you want to do it is fine, as long as you get to this video editing setup with the sequencer, the previewer, your scene settings, and your files over here. Of course, you can morph around Blender's interface a little bit if you want. That's kind of out of the scope of this video, so I'm just sticking with all the defaults. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is you want to set up your project. And you also want to, of course, have a video ready. So it's kind of both of those things. But I always like to do this first here. Go over to the settings, and then go to the output and find the render place. So I have a folder just in my home folder called renders, and I'm going to put it right in there. If you don't choose, it'll just go to a temp directory. And also you want to go down to file format and change this from PNG to FFmpeg video. That sets it up to render as one of the most common formats that everything can read. Also, you want to expand out encoding like I just did there. And you want to go ahead and get some messages and interrupt your video right in the middle of your recording. That would be great too. Okay, muted. And then you want to also go down to audio here and change this to AAC. And that's good enough to get a half decent render. I wouldn't recommend changing any other things unless you're willing to get some varying results. So those are the basics right there. So I'm just going to collapse those. You don't need to do whatever. Now at this point, you generally want to save. I'm going to drop a video in here first before saving it. So you can do this however you want. You can grab a video from your phone. You can record something with a screen capture like OBS, or maybe your webcam. But basically any video that you have as a file on your computer, you can navigate to it and bring it in. You can also drag it in from your file explorer if you've got a video somewhere in here. So let me just see here, videos. So I could drag it in this way and it'd be happy, or I can navigate to it from my file explorer here, and you'll see a bunch of little commands. You can hover over these to get a pop-up of what they are. One of them is like create a new folder, go back a directory, refresh, some basic folder operations. So I'm going to grab just a random video. Usually you want to start with a small one, so go ahead and take the time to get a small video of your own if you'd like to follow along. but if you're just watching and learning, that's fine too. Alright, so I'm going to grab, let's say, this video. I don't really know what this is. I think this is some coding video. I'm just going to drop it in here. So it adds it as a new strip. And you can see two different colors. This bluish one is the video. Well, I guess they're both bluish. And this tealish one at the bottom is your audio. The first thing I like to do, well, let's go ahead and save, first of all. This way we don't have to redo those properties. And it saves as a something.blend. It's a Blender file. I'm just going to call it ASDF for now. That's fine with me. Click Save Blender File over here. And there we go. Now if something happens to crash or we have to leave or quit the program for whatever reason, we can come right back to this and we have all these settings, because it's always a pain to have to redo these settings. You might be able to default them somewhere, but I'm not going to look at that right now. Alright, so you can scroll out with your mouse wheel, or if you don't have a mouse wheel, you can grab the ends of these little bars. They've got a little tiny dot, and if you click the dot, you can just do it that way, and you can do it for the vertical as well over here. So mouse wheel is your friend for getting around your video. And you can hold control while you're scrolling to move about. As you can see, I'm going left and right. I'm still using the mouse wheel. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm just holding control. So those are some basic controls to get you to move around. And you move your playhead up here. Now you can see this little area that's kind of highlighted. That's the current render area. So if I hit like play right now, it'll just cycle that over and over. So there we go. It just starts it over. And to change that, you got to do that down here at the bottom right. It has a start and an end frame. Also, I forgot to mention, when you drop a video in, it automatically adjusts your frame rate to that video. So if you're doing multiple videos, you need to have them all the same frame rate or from the same device. Or you can use some other program to get them all to this exact same frame rate before bringing them into Blender if you need to. That's pretty standard for video editing. Just thought I'd mention it though, because it can be a source of annoyance. Blender doesn't handle multiple frames very well. So if you have a 60 FPS video and a 30 FPS video and then like a 29 point something and you try to put them all together in Blender, it's not going to do well. So you just need to use something to get them all the same first. Alright, but okay, so let's change this to be the length of our video. So that's kind of the first thing you need to do, is just adjust those. So let's go to the end, and you can do this by hovering your mouse in this sequencer area and holding or just pressing page up, and page down goes the other way. Alright, so now that we're at the end, we'll see that we're at frame 1038. So we're going to copy that and just put it as the end. Hit enter. Alright, so that will change the render time and the view time. So now we got the whole thing. Alright, so we could render it like this, but what's the point? It's just the exact same video, basically, just re-rendered. Nothing really different other than it's going to lose a tiny bit of its original quality. So maybe you want to do some cuts. Cuts are the big thing. To cut any of these, you've got to click on it and highlight it and then press K. I'm going to undo that with Control Z, because generally you want to keep these together. You see we've got a video and an audio, and you can multi-select with Shift or by clicking outside them and making a box. So that's the way you want to get them both, and then press K. Now K is a soft cut, which means you can basically repair it. So I'm going to highlight these ones over here, and I'm going to press the G key for grab. And grab allows you to start moving them around. And you can lock this move around by pressing X to lock it to the X-axis, or Y to lock it to the Y-axis. Or if you want to not have it locked at all, you can just hit Escape and start over by pressing G again. Alright, so K being a soft cut lets you basically click on the end of these where there's a little arrow, and you can multi-click by holding Control to select ones of the same starting point, and press G and expand it out. So I'm not actually moving the file there. Let me zoom out a little bit. Not actually moving the file, I'm expanding it back. So the soft cut allows you to repair. Now I'm going to hit Escape here to cancel that. And I'm going to grab these and put them back down here. when there's an empty space like this and you want to just pull this back and line it up, you can, while you have your mouse hovering in the sequencer area, press the backspace key and it'll pull it back. Alright, so that's that. Let me just show you a few other things. So on this audio, I'm going to hit actually Control Z a bunch of times and get this back to its original state. There we go. So I'm going to click on the audio here and I'm going to do a display waveform. It's very handy to know where your waveform is changing and where the sounds are. So I generally turn that on, and as you can see here, you can adjust the volume and the pitch. So once you do some cuts, say you want to cut this part out, you go here and maybe you want to cut to right here where the audio starts again. You can grab the ends, press G and just pull it in. And to be precise, you can hold Shift and it moves slower and more precise. There you go. And then maybe you want to back it up with a backspace. And now you can see the endpoint has changed, so when you're ready to render, you would go over here and change this to the new endpoint. And there you go. So you cut out a little portion of your video. Now, there is so much Blender can do. The sky is sort of the limit. I'm just going to show you a few more basic things, a few more cool effects. You can bring in photos and videos. So up here, so you can drag them in from your File Explorer, or you can use this File Explorer area. I'm just going to go up a directory, up another directory, and into Pictures. And I'm just going to grab this random wallpaper here. Actually, I'll grab this Blender logo, and I'm just going to drag it in here. And it kind of looks like a video, except it's by default it stretches it out over your whole screen, which isn't always what you want. Maybe it's fine, but as you can see, you can, let me zoom in a little bit here. Zoom in a little bit here, use Control Scroll to move over. You can grab the ends and press G and move it. And if it's above the video, it'll always show. If it's below, it won't show as long as something's above it. Alright, so with this, you can do things to it over here in its properties, like change the opacity of it. And if you don't want it to stretch over the whole screen, you go down to this transform and you click offset. And that way it gets it back to its normal form, and it's just at 0, 0 here. So you can expand out this offset and change its position. Maybe you want it somewhere else. And you can go through the rest of these settings and mess with them if you want to see what they do. But that's generally the main thing you want to do, is change the offset and change the position if you don't want it stretched over the entire screen. Alright, well, what else to cover here? I guess I could cover a little transitions. So if you want to transition two video files to make a little fade, what you do is you go and you grab one set of them and move it to a different area. I guess the audio could, well, I'll do something with the audio. So you bring it up above it or something like so. And then I'm going to grab these and move them and overlap them just slightly. I'm holding Shift so I can kind of control it. Usually you want like a specific 2-second overlap or so. And I'm sure like advanced video editors would know more tricks like the J-cut and stuff like that. I'm not really going to get into that. So basically what you do here to crossfade them is you grab this one and you hold Shift and you click the other one. So you just click them both, and now you can go Add, and in here there's transitions, and you can see cross, gamma cross, or wipe. So cross and gamma cross kind of do a fade like effect. Wipe does the like a wiper type effect. And when you click it, add one, you get this brown area of where it happens, and you can kind of scroll over it and see it happen. See what you're working with. Now it's not going to be too obvious here because it's wiping to the exact same screen basically. You know, it's just a code editor. But if it's a pretty drastic thing, like a completely different clip, the transition's more obvious. This is just a bad example, but that's how you do it. You just select them both and go to Add Transition. Audio, you can do a similar thing. people always say, what do they always say? You add the new audio in or something first, is like the J cut. I don't remember exactly. But also you can just crossfade audio. So you can change the length. So you can crossfade it by just highlighting them both. I'm going to add, I think it's transition, and then sound crossfade. And there the sound will crossfade. Not going to do a whole lot here once again because it's such a basic example. Alright, so there's a little bit of crossfading, there's a little bit of adding images. Let's say you want to do fade in, fade out. There's multiple ways to do this. My favorite way to do this is go to where you want the fade to start and then go up to add and then color, and it defaults to a black color. So this color, what you can do with it is you can timeline it in. So this will introduce timelines as well, which is another important little thing. Let's say I want it to be a little bit longer. Looks like this is 1 second, 2 seconds, so about 2 seconds of fade in here. So at the beginning, it's going to be fully dark. The alpha is going to be 1. So I've got this at the beginning already. I've got my little cursor thing or whatever this is at the beginning. So I'm going to go over here to the opacity and hover over it with my mouse. And then what you do after hovering over it, you press I, and that inserts a keyframe. So basically it's going to remember that the opacity is 1 right there and be ready to change slowly to where you adapt it next. So let's go to the end. Actually, let's use page up to snap to the end there. And at the end, we want this opacity to be 0. So we change it to 0, hover over it. As you can see, it's this color indicating that there are other timeline events on this, or other frame events on this property. So we're going to press I to add another keyframe. So now we've got a keyframe at the beginning and the end. At the beginning it's 1, and at the end it's 0. And as you can see, as you scroll, you can see the effect happening. So that's one way to do fades, and you can just do a reverse of that to fade out. So that would be a fade in. Say if at the end you want to fade out, you can do a very similar thing. Let's go over here, click add, color. Let's go over to it, and we'll just snap this to the end. Oh, so I'm going to click this, press G, and then if you hold control while you got something and you're moving around, if you hold control, it'll snap. So sometimes that can be handy for getting things to the end. There we go. I'll get it right there. That's not quite perfect. It doesn't, there it goes, snapped. So that's approximately a 2-second fade out there, 30 seconds to 31.5, maybe a little bit longer. Try to get it to 2 seconds. So what we would do is the same thing here. I'm going to hit page up to snap to the what would be the beginning there. Change this alpha to 0, and press I, and go to the end. I'm going to do page up. Make sure you click on it to have it selected. Change this to 1, and press I. So now we got it fading. The darkness is fading in, which has the opposite effect to the video, of course. So that's my favorite way to do fades. You can do it by alphaing out your video too, because your video has an alpha. I just like these because you can move them around and like adjust them properly, because if you end up changing your video, you can take this fade and take it somewhere else, and you can also copy it. So say you want to fade another part of your video somewhere, you can just grab this, hit Control C, and paste it. That way you don't have to alpha a bunch of clips. You just have one little thing that's a fade out and one little thing that's a fade in. You can reuse them if necessary. So I'm going to erase that one. Alright, so we've covered a lot. You can also bring in audio clips if you want to put music over your stuff. Let me see if I've got any here. I'm going to go to music. Here we've got some kind of coding music. Oh, this is really long. So it'll just play over the time, and it'll be super loud usually. So you typically want to take this and you can adjust its volume, and you can keyframe its volume to adjust it at different times in the video. But typically if you want it as background, you want to lower it a ton, like maybe even a 0.1 or something. But obviously don't use copyrighted video and upload it to YouTube. You can go find their audio library and download them and bring those in if you want to use YouTube's free audio. So just so you know how to do that, that's how you bring in audio and just make it as a little backdrop. Alright, well I'm going to go ahead and delete that audio because I'm sure it's copyrighted and I don't want to give you guys the wrong idea. Alright, so I think that's enough for this video. Let me know if you'd like to see more, or if I'm missing anything else that you know you can do but aren't sure how to do. I could probably tell you. Just let me know. Let's see here. When you're ready to render, all you do is you just go to the very end here and make sure your keyframe at the end is correct. Looks like it's 941. And the starting one is 1. So that's your whole render area. And double check that your properties are as you want them before you render. Probably want this to be 100%. 1920 by 1080 is usually good. And yeah, just make sure you got that encoding correct. Make sure the video is going where you want it. You got it set to FFmpeg video, and that you set the audio to AAC. Those are the big things, just to make sure that you actually get audio, you actually get video, and you know where to find your file. So then you go up to render up here and go to render animation, which is Control F12 as a hotkey. And once you do that, it'll pop up this window and basically start showing you what it's doing. You can leave that up if you want, or you can just close it and it'll stop the render. But there you go. Once you have it rendered, you'll know where to find it. It'll just be in this folder on your computer, and you can do whatever you want to do with it next. Good luck. Happy video producing. Blender's great. It can do pretty much everything all the big editors can do, including adding in 3D objects, because of course, and lighting and stuff like that, because Blender is just a 3D modeling application, and it just happens to have all this video editing support within it as well, which I think is great, and I use it all the time. Alright, we'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it or if it helped you, and also subscribe to the channel for more tutorials. And if you want to go the extra measure, you can check out my Patreon, link below, and I'll be sure to do something cool for all the people who do support me. Thanks, and have a good one.